So, I watched Cuties. I wanted to see if the film matched up to the outrage garnered by its announcement or conveyed its stated intention by... I've never seen this French name before in my life, so I'm about to butcher it. Maimouna Ducour, its writer and director. She stated that the film is supposed to be a coming-of-age story that details a group of girls discovering their identities and the problem with media relaying harmful messages to girls regarding femininity, adolescence, and self-image. The premise of the film as an exploration of the use of children to their detriment is not a negative concept within itself. It's an important topic that must be talked about because it's a reality. For many children across the world, their lives are plagued by mistreatment, whether it be in Hollywood, through human trafficking, or in their own homes. Children are vulnerable in many circumstances and at many different levels of severity. But Cuties, in my opinion, fails to explore the issue of child endangerment completely. While Ducour cites her own experiences as an inspiration for this film, it's worrying to me how this can be made without challenging these issues. I'll explain. A major problem with the film is that it actually appears to reward this occurrence and doesn't actually condemn how media messages harm children. While members of the audience are depicted as shocked by the Cuties' final performance, nothing really comes out of it. The guards who seemingly accept the girls' dance as a way of getting out of trouble when they sneak into a closed building never have to acknowledge or challenge their own perceptions of girls or women as a whole. This movie is just a sequence of events that never really have many consequences except to further the plot. For example, after Amy takes and posts an inappropriate picture, the girls refuse to dance with her. There's no commentary or deeper realization about femininity, adolescence, or self-image, nor about how these things can lead to premature hypersexualization. I can't think of a singular poignant moment where any character, child or adult, has any kind of moment to make a statement contrary to these concerning trends. The girls instead feel empowered to appear and behave in the very ways the movie is supposed to critique. Some people argue that the point of the movie is to make people feel uncomfortable and aware of these issues. However, you can't predict who exactly is going to watch your movie. And some people are going to watch the parts intended to make us feel discomfort and enjoy it, which furthers the issue it's attempting to address. There's a phrase that goes, "Depiction doesn't equal endorsement." Just because something is shown on screen doesn't necessarily indicate the writer, producers, or directors advocate for it. Plenty of films and TV shows display an array of egregious acts that of course would never be accepted by wider society outside of fiction, and I don't doubt that Ducour is against the topics that were meant to be explored in Cuties. However, I find it counterintuitive that a cinematic piece intended to condemn harm to children spends an awful lot of time placing the actors in such precarious situations and having them perform multiple times in provocative ways, knowing that this can be viewed by anyone with an internet connection. As I briefly mentioned before, the ways in which these girls will be inevitably objectified by degenerates will even come back to them. They're 11, not incapable. They will be able to read the reviews and see the reactions. I'm concerned the impact this will have on them as young girls. These girls are actually dancing explicitly in revealing outfits, and it is a reality. That was choreographed. That was filmed. When we say depiction doesn't equate to endorsement, I feel as though this doesn't quite apply in the same way to Cuties. For example, films that depict harm to animals don't necessarily have any real-life impact on animals. The animals that appear in these films aren't actually being harmed, and they won't be able to read any of the reviews about them being harmed and people cheering it on because there are some sickos out there. Of course, you can argue that, hey, there was this case in which this person did this because of a movie, but that's very rare. However, in these movies, the girls are actively performing in this manner. While playing characters in a fictional setting, they are still doing these things, and while it is acting, harm will be caused by how they are perceived as young women. It's hard to excuse young girls acting in explicit ways because it's just acting when it's actually happening on screen. Many other oppressive aspects also aren't delved into deeper in the movie. On one hand, the movie fails to touch upon how sexual liberation can be used against children and cage them into certain behaviours. However, it also fails to talk about how traditional oppression does the same thing. It is shown and talked about how Ami's mother is distraught that her husband has taken a second wife, and there is a subplot that focuses on the upcoming wedding, yet not much comes out of this either. It's clear that Ami is discontent in her religious household, yet the only challenge that comes is her mother urging her not to attend the wedding to display disapproval. There's no larger commentary or conversation, even in subtext, on how this affects girls. It's only mentioned once after Ami receives her first period that she will have to be a wife one day, and that's it. These added dynamics to Ami and her family do little to develop them as characters. Ami's mother is obviously against her liberal turn and disciplines her, but we learn nothing else. Another common saying is show, don't tell. But I think that we are shown things and it only appears as a sequence of events and tells us very little about our characters. I don't think we learn much about any of them besides their circumstances. I don't feel like we really know Ami as the main character, other than she doesn't seem happy with her religion and wants to dance. While I don't necessarily enjoy films that are overly narrated, Cuties might have even benefited from the audience being able to hear Ami's internal thoughts, being able to understand how she's processing, navigating between these two extremes of tradition and modern femininity, and how she feels about how she is treated in both worlds. If this film was supposed to be a commentary on the over-sexualization of young girls, it failed on all accounts. There was no moment that took a critical eye on the issue, and no consequences for any of the characters who partook in the problem. I don't feel as though it was even treated as an issue, and the film as an entirety relies upon the audience being of a good moral standing in order to convey its message. And you shouldn't have to put all of that responsibility up to audience interpretation. It's one of the laziest ways of attempting to get a message across that you can possibly pull in filmmaking and in media in general. The premise could have been interesting if some things were added and some things were taken away, and could have been executed in the vision in which Decore had. Use suggested content, not explicit content, which protects your actors from being exploited. Use inner monologues or narration at certain parts so we can gauge their thoughts and feelings. Include consequences or a further explanation of what might happen, because we end on a note in which some of the audience is mad that they're dancing, but the girls are still enjoying the dancing and want to continue with the dancing. And that's it, really. Except for Ami going home and her aunt being very upset in the outfit that she's in. There's no consequences. The only lesson that I really learnt from this movie is that older religious people don't like it when you show skin. And okay, things don't need to be overly explained, but it needs to actually have a deeper message and meaning rather than just a series of events that happens. And that's it. Because again, the only thing I got from this movie, message-wise, is that older religious people don't like it when you show skin, and twerking as an 11-year-old in public is super empowering and fun. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to talk about the problems in Cuties rather than, oh my god, that's disgusting, because it is disgusting and that's obvious, but the premise itself, the idea of showcasing it as a problem, is a good concept. The execution, however, not so good. There are ways in which we can explore this topic that doesn't actually further the problem itself. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. My links are down below, my Twitter, my Etsy store, Instagram, Patreon, and PayPal. And currently up to the 1st of November, if you send me a donation on PayPal and say that it's for the Battersea Cat and Dog Rescue, I will screenshot that payment, censor out your name and photo, and put it in a Twitter thread so we can all see how much as a channel we are raising for the cause. I will link the Twitter thread down below in the description, and I hope you all are having a lovely day, evening, night, whatever. Bye.